The 26 letters of the Latin alphabet, handed down to us from ancient Rome and fitted, albeit imperfectly, to our English tongue. Wait, not so fast, that's wrong. This was the Latin alphabet. The rest of these were just crafted by some clever old-school modders. Yes, it's true. Your G's, J's, U's, W's, and Y's don't have the ancient pedigree of the rest of your alphabet. But what they lack in antiquity, they more than make up for in scrappiness. This is their story. G was the first to emerge. Long ago, Greek G made its way to Italy and turned into Latin C. But in early Latin, the C actually stood for the sound G and the sound K. Worse still, the one letter you might think could straighten things out here between K and G and let us differentiate them, that valiant K, well, that was going out of fashion. But C was still hanging on, K-ing and G-ing along. To linguists, that's sensible. They could tell you all about how these two velar stops actually share most of their features, and they just differ in one little thing, voicing. But to everyday Romans, that's little consolation. The difference was confusing and dangerous. I mean, does this say he's milking it, or does it mean let him beat it up? Who knows? I mean, it's all C's, all C's. Calm down and open the door, because here enters Spurius Carvilius Ruga, a former slave that ran his own private school 2,200 years ago. Frustrated with this two-faced C, and unable to even write his own name clearly, the story goes that he tacked on an extra stroke, creating a new G, and forever setting C apart from G. An amazing stroke of genius. Well, if C can have a companion, why can't U? Well, the only U around was actually V from older Greek upsilon. More on that in a second. Greek words staged a fashionable Latin comeback a little after the birth of G, and educated writers wanted a fancy way to write this strange Greek U with its very un-Roman U sound. So they borrowed upsilon again, a new upsilon, a second upsilon, a Greek U. Even today in English, Greek words like system still have that new letter, a letter missing from plain old Latin words. Now, tweaking C's and borrowing Y's is lightweight compared to what comes next. The Middle Ages saw the rise of a new letter, I with a tail below it. Well, it was originally a different look, not a different letter. Tailed I gave medieval European languages a way to set J apart from I. And that's important, because if we roll this story back to the Romans, we see an overburdened letter I that had to play both roles. Take the Latin word for young. Just take it. That first I was a Y sound, but the last one's the vowel E. Similar enough, but linguistically that means I is trying its hardest to be both a vowel E and a consonant Y. Add in our swishy tail, and this serified J comes to the rescue as our consonant, leaving I just as a vowel. So, Uvenis. But that's not good enough. There's another confusing letter hiding in that word, and it's the next one on our change list. Like I, the Latin letter V covers two sounds, a vowel U and a consonant W, what we'd call W. And that's why we like Uvenis, because it has both of them in a row. Never fear, we can sort this out. Just round out the bottom of that V, and what do you know? It's the vowel U! Hooray! But this change actually lingered for centuries. In older manuscripts, the U is still used as a variant of V for both V and U. Eventually, after a long sell, by the end of the 1700s, the two were treated as two totally different letters. Finally, we've arrived. So we have a better way to write Uvenis. But listen to old Cicero's pronunciation of that V. W, he says. W. So I glossed over that change when I said that V ended up standing for both V and U, but early on, that W pronunciation shifted to something pretty close to, but not exactly like our V. So by the time little Henry VIII was studying his Latin, that V had long been a V. Seriously, Henry? Fine, yes, this book is yours. Have it. Well, speaking of Englishmen, when early Germanic languages like Old English dressed themselves in the Latin alphabet, they asked about their newfound garb, hey, where's the letter for my W sound? And it didn't answer them back, since it's an inanimate metaphor. But Germanic speakers had already learned to get what they want when Rome was being withholding. No exception here. They cobbled together a new letter of their own by taking that V and putting it next to another V. Don't forget, though, that V and U were still two peas in a pod at the time, each one useful for making V and U sounds, meaning you could write this new letter as a double V or a double U. But here's where we should jump off the hamster wheel of history, because eventually that German W starts to turn into V on its own, just like the Latin V before it. Oh, history, you really like to keep your fingers on that replay button, don't you? I'd love to go on and compare other alphabets and talk about how or even if each individual European language adopted these changes or didn't or made decisions of its own. Think about how to this day the Irish alphabet makes none of these distinctions except C and G. But this is a good place to wrap up. Between last time with the uppercase, lowercase stuff and these modded letters, I think you can see that while you might think your alphabet's been aging and evolving since time immemorial, in some very real ways, it's not as old as you think.